What is up, weather enthusiasts? I'm your host, Pat's Path Predictor. Let's get right into the weather. Alright, so here's the situation we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. We have a lot more data for you today as more information continues to come in. We have a lot more stuff to talk about for the severe weather event that's going to be going on tomorrow, especially for Illinois, Indiana, and Michigan, as well as parts of Missouri, Wisconsin, Iowa, and Ohio. So we're going to have to take a really close look at what's going on, and here's the latest that we have pulled up for you right here. Here's the cliff notes that we have. There is still a slight risk of severe weather from around the St. Louis area and southern Missouri all the way up to Detroit and Michigan and as far east as Toledo, Ohio. A marginal risk is in effect from Pennsylvania and West Virginia all the way to the Illinois-Iowa border. Here's the risks that we have. We have a 5% tornado risk, which means there's a 5% risk of a tornado happening within 25 miles of a point over here. And that's mainly concentrated in northeastern Illinois, northern Indiana, a little bit of southwestern Michigan, and parts of Ohio in the extreme northwest end over here. The wind risk is at 15%, which means we have a 15% risk of 50 knots or 60 mile per hour winds happening within 25 miles of a point, and that's encompassing pretty much a little bit of Wisconsin around the Kenosha area, all the way to southern Missouri, as well as parts of southern Michigan over here, as well as pretty much about 80% of Indiana over here, not also to encompass Illinois in those areas right here. Here's the cities that's affecting, as well as you can see right here. It's affecting Chicago, Peoria, Springfield, St. Louis, Indianapolis, Fort Wayne, and even into Detroit. But the main threat that we're looking at right now, as of right now at least, is the hail risk right here. That just updated. Here's the hail risk. We have a 15% hatched risk for northern Indiana, parts of Ohio, Michigan, and Illinois, which means we have a 15% probability of 2-inch hail happening within 25 miles of a point. 2-inch hail or greater. That's considered significant hail damage right there, folks. So we'll have to pay very close attention. And the fact that this is going on throughout February is absolutely incredible, to say the very least. Tomorrow, the temperatures throughout this whole severe weather thing is going to be anywhere from the lower 70s to, especially around St. Louis, the lower 80s. So we're going to have to pay attention to that. Here's the situation that we have going on as well. The summary: scattered strong to severe thunderstorms associated with large hail, some near 2-inch diameter. Damaging gusts and a few tornadoes will be possible for late Tuesday afternoon into the evening and overnight for parts of the mid-Mississippi Valley. So that's what we have going on in association with that. So we're going to have to pay attention to that. I'm not going to read the rest of the NWS's forecast, but we are going to go over a lot of the models as well as some of the parameters that we're looking at. Now, last night, when the model runs really started to uptrend, I posted this on Twitter right here. This is the latest sounding from the RAP model 30 miles south of Southbend, Indiana. This is a major jump from only 24 hours ago. I put PDS tornado as that is what the sounding was showing right here. The CAPE is now at over 2,800 joules per kilogram. Surface CAPE is it right here, and which is an ungodly amount of energy for February in the Midwest. So that's why, and this was the sounding I was posting last night. This was as of the 21Z wrap, and this was for about 48 hours ahead of time, about 3 p.m. on that time right there. I forgot to add the disclaimer. I was just mentioning, just don't panic over this, and this is my kind of statement when it comes to this video. When you take a look at this stuff, don't panic over it. Just follow your local agencies, and when they tell you you need to do something, follow them. I'm just giving you all the data that the models are giving, and it's kind of up to you and the WFOs that you're kind of to kind of take the responsibility of like what you should do and all that stuff. But with that being said, I am going to continue to give you the information that we have so far. So let's go ahead and start right here. The latest HER is in. This is the 12Z right here. We're going to start with the temperature, then go to the dew point, and then go to the convective stuff right here. We're just going to start with basics real quickly. Here's the temperature that's going to be on Tuesday right here. The temperature is supposed to peak in pretty much the areas around Chicago and especially northern Indiana into the mid to upper 70s right here. And into Michigan, we're seeing lower 70s, especially southwestern Michigan, where that tornado risk is at its highest. but in areas around Missouri, like especially St. Louis, we're looking at temperatures in the lower to mid 80s over there as time continues to go on. And then this cold front starts to kick in a bit and starts causing stuff to fire up around the area right here. We also have dew points right here, as you can see, especially around noon on Tuesday right here, or noon tomorrow. We're looking at low 60s dew points for a lot of these areas right here, even into the mid 50s for parts of like where the tornado risk is for northeastern Illinois, northern Indiana, and into Michigan right there. These dew points will actually be beneficial for some sort of development right here, because there's going to be a moist enough atmosphere right here. Relative humidity is relatively good, to say the very least. We're looking at humidities in the 60s and 70 percentile range, so we're going to have to pay attention to that. Here's what we have with the surface-based CAPE. If we can actually go ahead and pull this up right here. Never mind. Okay, never mind. It's just taking a second to do it. Here's the surface-based CAPE that we have pulled right here. Here's what we're looking at right here. For the CAPE values for the HRRR, things are getting a bit interesting. This is at 5 p.m. on Tuesday right here. The CAPE values are peaking around 2,400 joules per kilogram for parts of Indiana, for parts of Michigan, even into parts of Illinois a little bit right here. And you see this CAPE start to really fire up in the afternoon hours right here. Now, a lot of the models have been saying other things, to say at the very least. In fact, if we can go ahead and show you the HRRR over here, we can show you the 12Z HRRR on this one right here. We can go ahead and pull that up right here. Let's go ahead and see if we can do that real quickly, just to kind of get a sounding off of this right here, so we can show you what we're thinking about right here. Let's go ahead and pluck a sounding out of Newton and Jasper County, Indiana over here, kind of seeing what they have to offer. And this thing is going to take a bit to load. Perfect. There we go. Here's kind of an example sounding that we have pulled up right here. Temperature of 67 degrees, dew point of 61, plenty of moisture for that, surface CAPE of 2,100 joules per kilogram. And here's what's really interesting me. These are the shear values that I'm paying attention to. We're looking at 33 knots of 1 kilometer shear with SRH values nearing 300, which for February in northwest Indiana is quite scary, to say the very least. Now, I'm not saying everything's going to happen. I'm not saying the worst case scenario is going to happen. But the fact that we have this much energy to work with is quite interesting, to say at the very least. Surface to 6 kilometer shear is 63 knots. And look at the directional tilt to this as well. This is directional tilt right there. And directional shear is what you need if you want more tornadoes. And speed shear is what you need if you want stronger tornadoes. I'm not saying anyone does. I'm just talking about it in meteorological terms. But yeah, that's what we're looking at least with this sounding right here. And you can see that veering with height going up into the upper levels right here. Possible hazard type is tornado. We'll have to pay attention to that. We did see some PDS Tor soundings last night, but we'll have to kind of hold off and see what's going on with that right there. Now let's go ahead and show you the supercell composite, because in fact, I want to go ahead and at least go back and take a bit of a history lesson with the supercell composite. Here's the 0Z HRRR as the supercell composite starts to fire up a bit. This is at about 4 p.m. right now tomorrow. The supercell composite peaks around 9 around northern Indiana right there, and some other areas, although we did see some readings in parts of over here, like in double digits. I know my buddy Gabe last night was talking about potentially a 13 reading, which that's a relatively high level of supercell composite right there. Now let's go ahead and go to the 6Z right here. The 6Z is pretty interesting, to say at the very least. The 6Z is showing a lot more supercell composite across the board over here. We were seeing like double-digit areas right there. We're not seeing as many readings of that. We are definitely seeing that, but the more like 7 to 10 levels of supercell composite are really more widespread through Illinois, through Indiana, Michigan, Ohio, those areas right there. And now let's go ahead and show you the 12Z, because the 12Z has really stepped it up a notch. This is for 7 p.m. tomorrow, just for context right here. We're looking at a lot of double-digit values. We saw a 16 value in this as well, which is absolutely insane. 17, actually, which is absolutely insane for the month of February in the Midwest. So this is a system that we have to pay attention to. And this is a system that we have to continue to monitor, especially as more data continues to come in, and especially as the NWS starts to act on that. Now, before we go ahead and kind of give jump to the conclusion right there, we're going to go ahead and show you what the HRRR is kind of advocating for, at least with the simulated reflectivity over here. The HRRR is calling for a more discrete situation that we have pulling up. It's calling for a more discrete setup than I was initially expecting. I was thinking we would see maybe about 2 to 3 hours of discrete stuff, and then the rest of it would develop into a squall line. We might see a bit longer of that right here. We might see a good 4, 5, maybe 6 hours of discrete stuff before it merges into a squall line late in the evening, as you can see right there, as it pushes through Indiana, Illinois, into Ohio, and into Detroit over there by around 10 p.m. tomorrow. So we have stuff to pay attention to as more data continues to come in. But that's not the only model we're taking a look at. I also want to show you the wrap right here, to kind of get a better understanding of what we're looking at. This is the 15Z wrap, because this goes out further right here. I would show you the 12Z, but it only goes out, I think, 21 hours, and that's not far enough to reach to kind of get you an understanding. The wrap is showing discrete stuff early on, but then it's going to kind of become more blobular and more of a squall line setup right here. Here's what we have with the Cape going on right here. This is for roughly about 7, 8 p.m. right there. But if we even go back to 5 p.m., we're looking at Cape values cracking 2,000 in a lot of central and eastern Illinois over here. So we're going to have to pay very close attention, because across the board, there's going to be a lot of energy, a lot more energy than I was anticipating, to say at the very least. The NAM has a bit of a westerly bias. It has it more in western and central Illinois than the rest of the models do. If we go ahead and show you the GEM RDPS right here, the GEM RDPS has the highest Cape values earlier in the afternoon, interestingly, and generally in Indiana, Michigan, and Ohio. So we'll have to pay attention to that. Here's the GFS that we have pulled up for you, at least for the surface-based Cape over here. Surface-based Cape is going to be less for the GFS than the rest of the models, but it's going to really depend on what we're looking at and how kind of how sunny it gets tomorrow. Because if there's supposed to be clouds over it, there's not going to be very much discrete convection, because we need that sun to get to the surface. Because what we need for that, if we want severe weather, is for it to kind of bounce off the ground and cause a greenhouse effect and kind of help warm the atmosphere a bit. And that'll do two things for us. One, it'll erode the cap that you see in those soundings, which is essentially that that temperature inversion you see, where it kind of goes like this and then back. It'll erode that and kind of get the surface temperature to kind of match that, and help strengthen the Cape. The second thing it'll do is it'll essentially make it easier for storms to kind of convect and start to fire up, and that kind of ties into the cap just breaking at that point. Now, we're going to continue to keep you updated right here. If you want my personal opinion on this, I think the main risks are mainly going to be hail, and I'm leaning towards a tornado risk, but wind risk is definitely still going to be there. I'm thinking there's going to be a few tornadoes tomorrow. For a chance of a significant tornado, unless we see the models completely shift tonight, I'm not ruling it out, but I don't think it's extraordinarily likely. But I will keep you updated here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. But with that being said, we're closing the video out right here. I really hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. It helps us out, helps us make more videos like these. The goal of this channel, as always, is to get more people engaged with weather. And with that being said, have a wonderful day, guys. Stay safe.